Hi guys, it's Nyla Dar here from Love Now TV, helping you to transform fear to love and reminding you of how powerful you really are. So in this video, I want to discuss our need to be right, and the more intense that need is, the impact that has in our relationships. Normally when our need to be right is very strong, we will create conflict in our personal lives, in our work situations, and in our friendships too. And it's important to understand why we can go down that road and what can we do different that we create more peaceful, harmonious relationships. So the roots of this need to be right, it stems from our childhood. So depending on our parents' level of authority, the strength of their opinions about what was right, what was wrong, religious beliefs, etc. The more strong their opinions were on us, the more black and white our world can be. And it can be split very much into right and wrong, good or bad. And there's little room for the flexibility and the range of all the grey in between, all the different shades of grey in between. And so we can get very attached to our own opinions and think that the way we think is the right way, and lose sight of the fact that other people grow up in different values and different conditionings, and therefore they feel the same way about the way they've grown up. And so if we don't actually make room for the other people, like there are as many opinions and ways as there are people, because all of us have individual minds, and we'll bring to the table our own way of thinking, our own way of being, our own way of relating. And if we don't get curious and stay open to question, well, why would someone think like that? And get involved in their opinion as much as our own, what we're likely to do is become very strong about our own viewpoint, stop listening to the other person, and make assumptions and confirmations that I'm right and they're wrong. I know for me, growing up, both my parents by nature are critical and judgmental. I mean, it's how they've grown up, it's how they've been. And so I had a very strong sense of what was wrong with me, what I didn't do well, what wasn't good enough, what I could do better, and definitely when I was in the wrong. So that was very much part of my childhood. And for children growing up, the feeling that they're wrong is associated often with being bad, and it's an unbearable feeling. So as adults, the last thing we want to do is to feel that again. So we can get very attached to being right and looking at other people from the same kind of critical and judgmental eyes that we've experienced, but now we're acting from that point of view. And it can be small things that we just make assumptions of, that we don't even think about right and wrong, but because we think a certain way, we just naturally assume other people will also behave in the same way. So this is a silly example, but it's still very relevant in the sense that when I would eat at home, my eyes were always bigger than my stomach. So I would always have more on my plate, and I have a little stomach and I don't eat that much, but I'd always fill it. And so when I'd finish, there would always be, food on the plate, and my mum or somebody else would have it, but it wouldn't get wasted. But I never left my plate empty. So when I got married and I, would cook and put food on for my husband, he would always clean his plate, right? Without thinking, without even being conscious, I just started to give him more food because I thought he's not leaving anything, therefore, So fast forward a year and he's a stone heavier. I learned that the reason why he always cleaned his plate was because he was taught as a child, you must not leave anything. You know, think about the children in Africa, think about the poor people who can't go, who can't have the kind of food you have, and don't waste it. And so, you know, he was going from his viewpoint, I'm going from my viewpoint, and just continuously giving more and more food, expecting him to leave something. And it's something we didn't even discuss, it was just there. But, you know, a year later, it was discussed and this came out. And I see in my own life and the lives of others that when we become very attached to a point of view, it's almost like our life depends on it. And sometimes our reaction to somebody's comment or disagreement or saying something to us that we don't like can be so out of proportion with what's being said. And usually when that happens, it's because there's a charge and it's connected to something from the past. It's not really about the present, but it's just pressing a button and now you're transported back to a childhood place, and before you know it, your intensity is so strong that you're now arguing. And when we start to get to that place, we stop listening. We stop listening to the other person. We're just waiting to get our own point of view across, and we're too defended. And of course, the other person feels it, so they become defended. So what can we do to create more, you know, peace and harmony? Is to notice the feeling in us, because it's not the other person doing it. The charge, the connection, the trigger is in us. So just become aware of that feeling and notice it. And if you can, become curious, like, oh, okay, I'm having a reaction, but why is this person saying this? And let me find out, let me be as interested in their point of view as I am in mine. And you'll be surprised what people will tell you when you become curious, rather than insist on being right and write somebody else's opinion off as wrong. Nobody wants to experience that. But you won't do that if you're already in reaction mode. And the stronger you were told off and told what was wrong with you, the more your need to be right will be. So just get curious and be willing to hear another person's opinion as much as you would like to have yours heard, and see what you learn. Because honestly, people are so interesting, and the way they think and why they think is fascinating if we're not so attached to just what we think. The world in itself, I mean, nations are at war because one country thinks it's right and the other isn't. Like, that's led by leaders who are so sure of their point of view. So, you know, in your own world, create a more harmonious, peaceful world by listening, by being curious, by noticing your reactions, and be willing to learn about yourself and others and create, you know, more loving relationships. Who doesn't want more of that? Just because we're habituated to other ways, let's wake up to what's possible in us and create more of what we want and less conflict in our relationships. Thank you for listening. I hope it was of some value to you. And if you like the videos, please subscribe to the channel, and I will see you next time. Thank you. Bye for now.